What's up, everyone? Welcome back to jikGeek. Welcome to jikGeek in the week. This is episode 13. It's good to be back. It's been about a week since we did the Final Fantasy 16 special with our first guest, Top Secret. That was a great one. I had a really good response to that, so thanks for all the love and support. Sound's looking great, so I think we'll just kick off. Excited for this one. It's going to be a good one. Yeah, haven't live streamed in a while. We've moved the Final Fantasy X No Sphere Grid run offline for the moment, getting that PC, that gaming PC setup done, and had a few things, work and life gets in the way. What can you do? But it's one of those. Just glad to be back streaming for you and bringing you all the latest geek news, all the latest content. Not much happening, got to be honest, but we've got plenty to discuss today. As usual, if you're joining us in the chat, great to have you with us. Thanks for joining. Thanks for the love and support recently. We've been doing the Secret Invasion reviews. Started off okay. It's been a bit wobbly, got to be honest. But if you're enjoying it, great. I'm really happy for you, and I'm jealous because I really wanted to enjoy that show. I just can't gel with it. I just don't see how they're going to turn that around in 4 episodes either. But stay tuned for that, because that'll be dropping. Hopefully try and get them out every Wednesday going forward for the next 4 weeks. We've had some great responses for that though. So if you're enjoying the reviews, keep showing it love and support. Really, really love doing them for you. So what have we got going on today? So we're going to check out, first things first, we're going to be looking at the FF16 reviews via Metacritic. Now, it's not the holy grail of reviews, Metacritic, but it's a decent place to start. So we'll be going through those. We'll be looking at how everyone's perceiving Final Fantasy 16. Then I think we'll be making our way over to... I think we'll then do the Dune 2 trailer. That dropped recently. That looks absolutely banging. So looking forward to reacting to that. Then we've got some Jon Snow news to go over. I think we'll be going to... There's an article from Screen Rant on that. What else have we got? What else? I need to double check. Oh, we've got the new Superman. The new Superman has been cast by DC. And I think a new Lois Lane has been cast as well. So that's going to be for the upcoming Superman Legacy film. And that all kicks off James Gunn's DC universe. Look, it's a mixed one, that is. I'm more of a Henry Cavill fan when it comes to Superman, but I'm also a massive Batman fan. So really looking forward to who they cast as Batman. If it is Robert Pattinson, that'd be cool. That'd be interesting. We'll see, though. So we've got that news to go over. We're going to have a look into who they've cast in terms of Superman and Lois Lane. They look good. From what I can see, they look really good. They look like good choices. The Superman casting, not really heard much of him, but definitely the Lois Lane casting is an interesting choice. Either she was or is playing, is it Magnificent Mavel or something like that on Amazon? So that's meant to be a good show. And then I think we'll finally finish off tonight's stream with reacting to the 3 Body Problem series. So for all that don't know, I am a massive fan of this book series. Massive fan. And I think it was Quinn's ideas that got me into this. Watched a few videos on his. Really loved what the story was all about. Picked up the books really cheap at a charity shop. And I've been hooked on them since. I finished number 1. And I think this trailer is season 1 is going to be about book 1 from what I've heard anyway. So we'll be reacting to that. I don't think it's got any spoilers for books 2 and 3. I haven't finished book 2 yet. Absolutely loving that. Not as good as book 1, but really, really enjoying book 2 as well. And yeah, I think that's what we'll be doing. Obviously a breakdown and going over the trailers in a bit more detail. But if you want to stick around for the reaction and the breakdown, that'd be great. If it's just the reaction, that's also great. But I think we'll be going more so into the three-body problem in more detail. Although I love Frank Herbert's Dune, and I loved part 1. I thought that was excellent film. Such a groundbreaking galactic adventure that was. So really looking forward to watching those two trailers today. As I said, if you join us in the chat, thanks for joining us on a Sunday. Hope you can join us, stick around for as long as possible. With that out the way, I think we'll jump straight into the articles. We're going to kick off with the FF16 reviews. Let's just check if the chat is working. Yep, so things coming in loud and clear. Following on the chat. Right, that's better. Just a what's up to all the new subscribers as well. We've had a right few since our previous podcast and since we've been doing the Secret Invasion reviews. So thanks for all the love and support. It always helps growing the channel. I'm looking to get to probably, obviously looking to get to as many as possible, but looking to break that 100 barrier by, a couple of months, probably by September if I can. We'll just keep pumping out the content for you all. Anyway, so let's take a sip of water. Final Fantasy 16. So if you didn't join us last week for JGITW in the Week, myself and guest Top Secret, we did a massive breakdown on all things Final Fantasy 16, looked at the plot leaks, looked at all the news to do with it, and kind of gave our thoughts about the game and a lot of the intricacy details and what was it about and comparing it to previous Final Fantasies. The pair of us are massive Final Fantasy fans with our respective favourites. I know Top Secret's big into Final Fantasy 8. As you know, if you're a follower of the channel, I'm big into Final Fantasy 10. So it was good to do that comparison. And I just wanted to kind of go through the reviews just to see what Metacritic is currently saying. Now, off the bat, things are looking very, very positive for the game. It's had some great reaction from the fan base. Unsure really what the old school Final Fantasy kind of veterans, myself included, but even those that are, have gone back even further and like the likes of Final Fantasy 7 perhaps. Unsure what their reaction has been, but on the whole, it's been extremely positive. And well, you can see by these initial review scores, 88 is a very, very solid score on Metacritic. So it takes a lot for you to get over the 90 here. I reckon only probably a handful of games have got into, the kind of near perfect scores. But the user score as well, really strong, really looking strong at 8.3 there. I know it's had some review bombs, and maybe that hasn't helped with the scores. But like I said, really strong uptake from the fan base this has been. And look, I'm a big fan of the old school turn-based, so I've got to be honest, and it's not probably my cup of tea. If I had a PS5, would I play it? Maybe, just for the channel. But I don't, and it hasn't come to Steam, not yet. So we'll see if it does. If it does, great. If it doesn't, what can I do? I can only review it then. So let me know your thoughts though. Have you played it? Are you currently playing it? Are you watching playthroughs, etc.? What's your deal with it? Because I'd love to hear your thoughts on the game. comparing it to the old-fashioned Final Fantasies as well. And anything past 10 as well. Even the MMOs, does it compare to those? Is it different? It'd be good to get your thoughts on those as well. So let me know in the comments, either now or when this goes live. That'd be great. But 88, I mean, it's a fantastic score. 8.3, great score. Let's just check out a few of the reviews, though, because I think these are worldwide. So, maybe a die-hard classic Final Fantasy fan at heart, but there's no getting past the fact that this game, with all of the high-octane DMC-inspired action, is an absolute phenomenal example of RPG craftsmanship, setting out in a new direction once again. The oft bitter yet irresistibly engaging story and addictive action-focused gameplay allow Final Fantasy 16 to stand tall as a phenomenal example of contemporary video game craftsmanship. I mean, what a review to start with. 100 out of 100, giving it the perfect score, and from a die-hard Final Fantasy veteran fan. I mean, Square Enix must be rolling in the money at the moment, because look at all these 10s and 100s. It's got a really, really positive review. And so it should. I mean, from the reviews that I've watched, I've had a blast watching them. I think visually, it looks super impressive. The icon battles, they look super impressive. Very Tekken-esque, gotta be honest. And very Aeon versus Aeon. Now, that's me going back to my FF16 days. But the graphics looks incredible. And, you know, the gameplay is good. It's very Devil May Cry. Massive fan of Devil May Cry growing up. Especially the first one. But the fact that you can, link elemental things with your weaponry. There's the whole kind of sphere grid sort of thing with the weapons, with the equipment, with the kind of player upgrades. I think that customization's really good. The action, it's very Arkham Asylum as opposed to Final Fantasy, and I guess the game is starting to redefine really what a Final Fantasy game is, because look, I get it. I'm into business myself. I know what this company needs to do. It needs to appeal to the rising audience. And what I suspect is they're kind of going two paths here. They're going to take the FF7 route for the old school players, because I think that appeals to more of both camps, both the old school players and the new school players, whereas Final Fantasy 16 is simply for the new school players and the kind of the younger generation. So I think it's a very, very smart move, because you're bringing everyone on board. Now, we've had the recent news about the Final Fantasy X remake, which I am buzzing for, absolutely buzzing. We've got the No Sphere Grid Final Fantasy X playthrough on the channel at the moment, so that's going along. So I am absolutely buzzing for that. All of this current Square Enix news is music to my ears, really. But I think what they're doing is very, very, it's an intelligent play. They're appealing to all fans, and they're pumping out some seriously quality content. Now, whilst I won't get to play Final Fantasy 16, at least until it comes to Steam, like I said, I've been watching a lot of the playthroughs, really enjoying the visuals, really enjoying the action. Really enjoying the some of the story bits. Gets a bit complicated and a bit convoluted here and there, but what Final Fantasy game doesn't. It is a very, very complex story. I think I watched a like half an hour run through of the story. Listened to that yesterday, and very complex story, very complex compared to the rest. It's kind of on the level of Elden Ring. That sort of grand-esque sort of storytelling. But this is what it needs to be. This is what the player base demands, I imagine. The visuals, the action RPG sort of elements, great storytelling, and a satisfying ending. So, epic. Right, let's have this next one. 100 out of 100, epic. It's as simple as when it comes to Final Fantasy 16. Like I said, narrative, graphics, game design, combat, flawless experience for both newcomers and hardcore fans. I mean, that's debatable, because, like I said, I don't think this is targeted at the hardcore Final Fantasy fans. Hardcore action RPG fans, yes. Newcomers and new school Final Fantasy fans, absolutely. This is everything from probably Final Fantasy 13.3 onwards. That sort of player base. Now, what else have they got to say? Innovation, but also true to the franchise's roots. Again, that's debatable. I don't think they're right there. It's for sure one of the main titles of a really stacked 2023 for gaming. Now, this is up for Game of the Year, and I think this will win it over Zelda. So let's see what happens there. I don't think it is going back to the franchise roots in some respects. It's got the icons, it's got the Moogles, got the weapons, got the sort of enemies. We had the Marlborough, we've got the Aeons, things like crystals. They're really synonymous with Final Fantasy as well. So it's got a lot of elements that are synonymous. But like I said, I think the battle system and the action is catered for that new school and the newbies to the Final Fantasy series. Right, 95. So these are so this must be in kind of like value order. So this is dropped to 95 nonetheless. FF16 is not only one of the best games of the year, it's also one of the best role-playing titles made in Japan in a long time, and therefore one of the most important exponents of the legendary franchise to which it belongs. Thanks to the great production values and clear ideas to keep its development cycle on the right path. A matter of that, of course, leads to tremendously solid video games. Now look, Top Secret gave us that insight last week on the podcast about Square Enix looking to push the PS5 to its absolute limits with this game. Now, I do believe that's what they're attempting to do with all of their works. They're looking to use the latest technology. They're looking to push the hardware as much as possible. They're looking to bring on new markets. You've got the newcomers, you've got the new school Final Fantasy fans with this game. But I think we'll see with things like Final Fantasy X Remake as well. Now that's been rumoured. It's one of these where we might get the full game designed through Unreal Engine 5, and that would be seriously cool. That would be seriously unreal if we did get Final Fantasy X Remake, because we did have that Final Fantasy X 25th anniversary trailer. I will try and get that in the chat or even in the description after this goes out, but that was just unreal, and that was done solely on Unreal Engine 5. So, yeah, hopefully Square Enix pick up that as the latest technology, as they've done here with Final Fantasy 16, looking to stretch that beyond its limits, to stretch the PS5. But yeah, I mean, Game of the Year contender for sure. Whether it's gone back to all of its roots, but I think, like I said, that's what they're looking to do with Final Fantasy 17. Right then, so 90 out of 100. At its best, FF16 is a jaw-dropping epic, rarely seen proportions. It's pretty much the pinnacle of cinematic spectacle in modern games, and its often gripping emotional story is often matched by its fantastic combat system. While its overall quality does dip outside of the main plot, this is still a must-play action RPG and the best single-player Final Fantasy in over a decade. Compared this to FF15, this is a absolute standout performer. Comparing this to 14 and 11, I mean, obviously it's going to have better graphics than 14 and 11. I know the team on 14 had probably I think they had something to do with this game as well and the production. So you can see a lot of 14 in this. You can see a lot of the, you can see a lot of the world building as well. But yeah, brilliant quality. The visuals look superb. The action looks decent. All of the icons, like the Aeons, look unreal as well. Really, really strong. Really dig in all of the designs of all of them. To be fair, that was one of the better parts of Final Fantasy 15, but I really enjoy the look of the icons in this one. So we've got a couple of positive reviews to go through. Final Fantasy 16 is an excellent entry in the series with a gripping story, thrilling combat, nuanced characters, and an ever-charming protagonist in Clive. Now, there's been a lot of pushback on Clive, a saviour and all this stuff, but honestly, I thought from what I've heard and read and and seen, he's a really good protagonist. There's a really complex story behind that. There's a really interesting arc of Clive where he's up and down in the story. There's a really interesting arc that takes him through all of the different locations in the world of Final Fantasy 16. He encounters all of the dominants, he encounters all of the icons, and obviously there's then the final showdown with the last boss, and it comes to this massive conclusion. And I think it's a really, really bittersweet ending, but that is classic Final Fantasy. Massive fan of Final Fantasy X, and look where that happened. Look where that ended with that bittersweet ending. So Final Fantasy 16 does stick to the series roots there, with the bittersweet ending, and immerses all of those elements into kind of the climax, but also immerses all of those elements into the story as well. The icons are part of it, the locations, all of the characters. You've got that whole kind of Game of Thrones-esque royalty sort of vibe as well going on. We saw a lot of the chocobos, especially in the trailer. So yeah, it does encompass a lot of the typical Final Fantasy elements. I guess because personally I thought the FF10 battle system was the best in the series. That's probably why I've stuck to that. But I can see why fans of this game love it so much. It's quick, it's entertaining, it's sharp. I mean, the graphics look amazing, going from those sort of FMVs into the gameplay, and vice versa, the gameplay and just some of the cutscenes into the mega cutscenes. It's just phenomenal how smooth that is as well. Right, couple more, and then we'll probably get onto the negative ones. I've just clocked there's a few negative ones, so I do want to go through those as well. Right, so while FF16 is a focused game that has no hesitation in eliminating the unnecessary, the breathtaking realm of Valisthea feels polished like a true AAA title. Yes, it does, and that's probably why it's up for Game of the Year. It is a high-quality experience that can be cherished through many details. That being said, the series' more traditional tropes don't always match Final Fantasy 16's modern production standards. Well, that just proves that it is done by a different team, the majority of the team was more from like Devil May Cry action RPG, but also those that have done previous Final Fantasy series are more from the MMO. And you can see a lot of definitely the world building, definitely the characters are very Final Fantasy 14. So, Final Fantasy 16's modern production standards, which can at times stand in the way of the player's enjoyment. I don't really know what this one's going on about here in terms of the production standards. The production of this is top AAA quality. Yeah, I mean, some of the tropes, it does beg the question, what is a Final Fantasy title these days? Is it all of the elements? Is it the battle system? Because I guess if I was just a turn-based battle system fan, I'd be moving on to things like Dragon Quest. So what is a Final Fantasy? I guess that's what Square Enix are trying to redefine, and trying to move away from. Final Fantasy isn't just a battle system, although some players would argue against that. I think it's probably a combination of the story elements, the in-battle systems and equipment and abilities. That's another element, but also the summons as well. All of these things have got to come together. Sort of the battle system, whether it would be action RPG or not, but also, like kind of adding the magic with the sword and shield, with the equipment and the stat raises. That's kind of the in battle. You've then got the icons or the aeons or the summons. That then needs to form not just part of the overall battle, but the overall story as well. And then you've got the story in itself, which has a number of key elements. It needs to have, like a worthy rival for the main protagonist or protagonists. It needs to have an overall true boss. It needs to have probably a complex story, if I'm honest. It needs to intricate the summons, the icons, the aeons. It needs to have chocobos. It needs to have, kind of the likes of Sid and the weapon names, maybe some crystals if they can. It needs to have, just thinking, it needs to have things like Ultima. It needs to have things like, the name drops as well. These are all little details that make up what really a Final Fantasy is in my eyes. So I think they've done the majority of that. They've got a great battle system for those new action players. The story's very complex, very intricate, very Elden Ring detail. What we've also got is great characters. I mean, I was very worried at the start of the trailer, that this could just be a single player focus. But I like that they introduce new characters. I like that they introduce new characters throughout the story and they come along with you and they drop off, etc. I know Sid's one of those characters. I don't know, it's a massive spoiler. But like I said earlier on, this title is dedicated towards the new player base, towards the new market, whereas I think Square Enix are moving swiftly towards making FF7 that kind of AAA title for the old school fans as well as the new school fans, because it clearly appealed to everyone when that came out. I don't think FF16's topped that because it doesn't appeal to both parties, and I think FF7 Remake will take some beating. Really looking forward to seeing more on FF7 Remake, by the way. Right, let's just get onto a few of the more negative reviews. I mean, if you join us in the chat, let me know what your thoughts are on FF16. Have you played it? Have you watched it? Have you been reading articles? Have you heard? What have you heard? What have you seen? What are your thoughts against it? We did do a poll on the channel a couple of weeks back, and we had quite a few, as for the size of the channel, we had quite a few responses, and the kind of the overall view of those that did the community post was pretty substandard. So it'd be great to get your thoughts on how you feel about the title, whether you've played it or not. It'd be great to know. Right, let's just get onto these. So, Digital Trends, 60 out of 100. Final Fantasy 16 delivers an action side of its action RPG formula. A fierce and fast-paced combat system that makes for the series' most exciting stab at real-time swordplay, while its blockbuster icon fights rank amongst some of the game's most awe-inspiring battles. I mean, tick so far, but there's a general flatness surrounding those exhilarating highs as shallow RPG hooks and dated design leave a promising evolution for the series stuck in the past. Yeah, that's a harsh review, because I think Square Enix are really trying to redefine the series. I think I'm unsure what they're really saying here about the dated design. Maybe it's kind of the whole grey, dark theme, and maybe that's then the Digital Trends, this review's writer saying maybe we need to move past that kind of Game of Thrones vibe, Elden Ring, dark grey sky vibe onto something a bit more colourful. I don't think that's probably another trope of Final Fantasy. It's very kind of, it's very real, it's very dark, it's very kind of like real world. Now, I guess one of the benefits of something like Final Fantasy X, I know I keep going back to it, but it had such great locations. I mean, we had Besaid at the start, we had Zanarkand at the start. All of these different locations give out a different vibe. There's a different sky, there's different scenery, different environments. Here, it does feel like a lot of the locations look very similar in terms of maybe the colour palette, but I think that's probably makes up for it through the icon fights and the battle system and the cutscenes as well. And that's probably where they're getting to in terms of the flatness. But the exhilarating highs, I mean, my God, those icon fights, especially in the trailer and the demo, looked insane. They look so good, top notch. Honestly, they look so good. So the design as well looked really polished. Unsure what they mean, like I said, maybe about the sky and things like that. In-game play was spot on as well in terms of like the flow. Yeah, not really too sure what they're getting at there. So let's just go back up to a few of these. Right, old Old Final Fantasy fan here. And although I miss the good old times with turn-based battle systems and a world progression that runs like a classic JRPG, I have to say this is a great game. I haven't gotten this deeply involved in a story for a long time. Excuse me, but it's such a nice break with more linear approach since my last big games have been Elden Ring and don't actually know what that means. TOTK. We'll have to have a look at that one. Anyway, great job Square Enix. I'm looking forward to Rebirth after playing this. Yeah, so am I. I think that would be good as well. Right, oh, I've just clocked this one, so we may as well read it. 10 out of 10, easygoing to be Game of the Year. Amazing story, combat system, graphics, voice acting. Definitely the best FF game since 10. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, FF15 was just a flop in my eyes. FF14 obviously is in with that MMO player base. FF13, massively flawed. Although I did sink a lot of hours into that, it did feel quite empty. The story was very complex, very convoluted. 12 was probably the last good, great FF mainline title. 11 again to the MMO crowd, but 10 was probably the last top tier, S tier FF title, I think. So I agree with that. Best FF game since FF10. Now, this is the one I want to get to. I mean, we won't go over too many more of these, but it was just to get a sense of what everyone is thinking and how everyone's reacting really to the game. So, TDK Gilgamesh. So they're obviously a fan. Gilgamesh is synonymous with Final Fantasy. This game is a betrayal to fans of the series. Now, it's a very interesting start to that review because this reviewer must be an old school fan. It does less to set itself apart from a simple hack and slash adventure than God of War. I mean, I actually agree with that. Assassin's Creed has more RPG elements at this point, and this is sad for a game that is marketed as an RPG game. Again, they're trying to recreate or redefine what an RPG is. Is Devil May Cry an RPG? You could argue it is. Is Pokemon an RPG? Yes, it is. You're playing a role. That role is Clive. That role is in the world of Final Fantasy, in the role of Valisthea. So it's an RPG game. It's got story. It's got icons, Aeon summons, and it's got kind of unique battle system equipment, magic, sword and shield. Yeah, it's hack and slash, but that's the direction they want to take it. I'm not happy with it, but what they've done is good, and I can appreciate what they've done from a neutral jikGeek perspective. That's what I mean. Right, let's just finish this one off. Hope this is not the direction that Final Fantasy is headed, because if it is, then this will be the end of the road for me. If you want to play Devil May Cry with a Final Fantasy skin, here it is. That is exactly what this game is. It's Devil May Cry with summons and the complexity, the world building, and the grandiose world of a Final Fantasy game. Literally, the battle system is dropped from Devil May Cry. Now, this just so happens to be because the battle designer, I think it was, or the battle director, was the main guy from Devil May Cry. So they've shifted him across. They've recognised that he's done a great job with Devil May Cry. And he did. I've played the games. It's a really, really interesting battle system, and they've dropped it into a Final Fantasy game. But I think, like I said, they're on two paths at the moment. I just hope when they remake Final Fantasy X that they go down the FF7 route and they give us more of that kind of integrated dual battle system approach. You can go action and hack and slash like you can with, the wombo combos in FF7, or you can kind of do that low-key time CTB sort of strategic view of the battle, really thinking strategically and taking your time, etc. with that, what was it like, the time slowdown sort of vibe that they got going on with Final Fantasy VII as well. So I really hope they go in that direction with more, but don't touch the story. The story was perfect. Continue mainline Final Fantasy games in this if it's hack and slash. Maybe they don't. Maybe they go back to turn-based. Maybe they do. Maybe the FF17 is a combination of both, like FF7 Remake was, because I think that was the perfect battle system to appease both parties. Really hope we get that, because I know we won't get a dedicated CTB battle system with the new FF10 or pretty much any other Final Fantasy game going forward. So if it's Final Fantasy Remake or Final Fantasy 16 battle system, I'd rather go FF7 for the remakes of the old school titles. New school titles, do whatever you want, but I reckon they'll stick with hack and slash action RPG moving forward. Let me know what you think though. Love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Right, I think let's just have another look see if there's any more decent ones, any more juicy ones we can. I like the neg ones, to be fair, because look, we all know this game's great, right? I want to see what they're. Let's see if we can get the. Here we go. Some middle of the road ones. I'm a long-time PlayStation fan and I personally rate this game 7 out of 10. There seems to be a lot of overhype for this game when there were a lot of games out recently that were just far better. Not to mention during this generation I expected the graphics to look better considering we're at the peak of this generation. The graphics were meh and look PS4-ish. Everything else, including the battle mechanics, are good. I just think this game is overhyped. Okay, Cadence FX. Couple more then. The game's combat system is fun. And the icon fights are awesome. But the RPG element to the game is very little, which makes me very dissatisfied. And the gameplay is almost always fighting, quite monotonous. That's what I've heard as well. And at times, I must admit, that's what I feel with action RPG. That's why it doesn't appeal massively to me. Because you can get to a point where defeating enemies is the same three-button combo. There's not really a lot of variation in terms of the strategy you've got to do in order to defeat a specific enemy. Even take something like FF13. You had the whole paradigm system, which you needed to be very flexible on and change the different ways you approached a fight just to beat it. I get the impression with action RPGs and even FF16 is that XXX could be, the same three-button combo to defeat any enemy. And do you really need to use your magic? We got that kind of nice mix in FF7 where there were battles where you had to use magic or you were more favoured to use a combination of both, or certain enemies were only weak to magic. But I did get the impression in FF16 when I was watching some of the demo as well. I think it was against the Mordol fight where, in a typical FF game, you'd expect, you'd expect the Malbra to be weak against fire and have a pretty beefy defense, whereas you could just hack and slash at it and then it would go down like any old enemy. Right, some spoilers there, so we won't spoil that for you, unless you've read that. Right, let's just get a few more of these. Literally everything is good. The graphics, the gameplay, the story is unreal, the combat, but he gave it a 5 out of 10. That's just a bit unfair. 13 hours in. I've heard the side quest. Oh, that's probably another synonymous piece, actually, the side quests to Final Fantasy game, and I've heard the side quests are a bit shit in this. So that's kind of another thing on the Ven, I guess, is there needs to have decent side quests. Now, the last decent side quests I played was probably Final Fantasy 12 had a few decent ones. It had the fishing game, and it had where you had to do a lot of like collecting keys and stuff like that. But again, going back to FFX, probably the best side quests in the whole game. And I loved Blitzball, so I can't really argue with that. So, 13 hours in. Side quests are chores. I don't mind too much. I'm sure most would hate. Story is solid and suspenseful so far. I've heard it gets very complex, but I've heard, and maybe convoluted here and there, but I've heard it's really good. Combat is made for experimenting, as simple as it is. The first graphics are amazing. Highly recommend for action gamers and people who have held off Final Fantasy since 10. It's definitely worth checking out. It absolutely is. I can't understand why, though. They've given that a 5 out of 10, so This seems pretty positive. So some of these are, I don't think that's trolling or kind of like review bombing, but that seems like a pretty positive score to give it a 5 out of 10. Right. ACOS, 6 out of 10. So the story is amazing. The graphics and music are good. Dynamics range feels good. And you can always hear what the character says during loud action sequences. Oh, that was good, actually. Like, the sound was clear. The apart from that one guy, don't know his name. There was one guy in the demo especially. He got killed by the rocks. At one point, you just can't hear what he was saying. But definitely the... yeah... Like the visuals and the sound, really clear, really defined. Slightly bad colours in some areas. Well, we've been over that in one of the previous reviews in terms of like the grey skies and kind of the dull environments and atmospheres. Yeah, dark to dark, but overall good. Big boss fights are amazing in terms of how epic they feel. Well, that's just the icon thing. And I've heard the end boss fight is a pretty epic boss fight. The game does, however, suffer from one big problem, which is the lack of difficulty. They actually bother adding an easy mode and tons of accessibility options to make it even easier. Oh, this is interesting. But no hard mode. This is such a major deal breaker for me that it pushes the score from 8.5 down to 6. Okay, so at least we got some justification as to why they're giving it an 8.5. Games like God of War and Ghost of Tsushima, and you could probably put Elden Ring on there as well. Got decently hard modes, which I really wish this game would have. Causing nothing is less fun than feeling zero challenge in an action-focused game. I absolutely 100% agree. That's a fair 6 out of 10. Right, last couple. Absolutely incredible and amazing game from start to finish with great writing and fluent and flashy combat. 5 out of 10. Shadow Ninja 1605. I don't know what your... Maybe you thought that was 5 out of 5. Oh, we've got to have a look at a few of these. Oh, TK Gilgamesh, we've already gone over this one. Stan A doesn't play like a true Final Fantasy game, I must admit. Bring back turn-based combat. Yes, Stan A, I fully agree, pal. Fully agree. Bring back the days of FF10, please. Stan A, you're welcome on the channel anytime, mate. Right, we might as well go through these two then. So, Blues GP, 3 out of 10. I had a lot of faith in the game, but again, Final Fantasy disappoints. Incoherent graphics, I don't believe. No, I'm not getting that. Poor narrative. It's a game that tells a story, and its most important aspects is they throw it overboard. I've heard mixed things about the story, but it is complex, and I think that is synonymous to a Final Fantasy game. The gameplay is boring, repetitive, and not very involving. I can see what they mean. Except for a few moments, this game leaves me with the feeling that Square Enix wanted to put a sick dose of sugar in cinematics and other key moments in the story, while the interludes, side missions, become absolutely garbage. Yeah, I've heard that as well. A pity is that the last time I play a Final Fantasy of this new generation. Yeah, I think it's not looking good for the old school fans. You can definitely tell who the old school fans are versus the new school fans. Right, last one, then we'll move on. I'm really looking forward to reviewing that Dune 2 trailer. Not a fan. For some background, I love the FF games on the Super Nintendo way back in the day. See, 3 out of 10 from a typical old school fan. Things have changed. This game is played with poor frame rates. I don't think you blame the game there. I think you blame your GPU or your CPU. And crazy excessive camera blurring, which ruins the otherwise lovely visuals. I don't like the new direction they're taking. Neither does any old school fan, Dame. I didn't enjoy FF15 much either. Well, this feels like the post-cursor to FF15. The linearity, especially at the 15, is such a bore and a turn-off. Go here, get key, go here, get key. Feels wrong. I want the amazing world of wonder, and I want to explore and be amazed just by looking around. I keep wanting to play them, as I hope they can revive the fun as I remember playing as a kid and love every Final Fantasy game that came out. Well, you kind of redeem your arguments at the end, but You can tell you're an old school player. So enjoyed reviewing those. I like to see that there's some variation, but look, my FF days peaked probably at FF12, and I can see where people are coming from with this. But to appease old school and new school is very difficult. FF7 Remake, like I said, got that spot on. FF16 is very much for new. It's for a new market, new players, plus the new generation of Final Fantasy players. And that's what these fans need to consider, is that this game might not be for them, although it's got Final Fantasy in the title. So I would probably put this as an 8 out of 10. And the reason it gets docked points for me is probably half a point for the battle system, half a point for the linearity, half a point for the greyness, and probably half a point for the little convolutedness in the storyline. So apart from that, I mean, it's got the summons, it's got the integrated story with the summons as well, and all of the other characters as well. It's got a few of the battle elements that make Final Fantasy great. I'll probably dock it maybe another half then for, or within that 8 out of 10, probably dock it maybe a couple of decimal points for the side quest as well. So a 7.5 out of 8. I'd probably give it, and that's not even playing it. But I must admit, action RPGs, when they just hack and slash, yeah, they do get boring after a while. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments. Be good to hear your thoughts on this. I think what we'll do is, though, we're going to switch it up. Instead of moving on to the Game of Thrones, we will, I think we'll go straight to the Dune official trailer. Heard some really good things about this. Now, I just need to check if this is playing. Okay. Just checking the sound to see if this is playing. Oh, that's coming in nicely. Right, whether we do this as a standalone video or whether we just do this as part of the podcast, I don't know. But nonetheless, right, Dune Part 2 official trailer 2, reaction and review. Let's go. Right, let's start that again. Right then, Dune Part 2 official trailer, reaction and review. Let's go.
This world is beyond cruelty.
Oh, he's got blue eyes from the...
You've been fighting the Harkonnens for decades. My family's been fighting them for centuries. They were massacred. Alongside my father.
Looks so good, so grand.
Revenge.
All that you did, Lady Jessica.
In Fremen.
Let me fight beside you.
Reload!
This looks so good.
He said
I got that. Thanks.
I won't be fighting for him. I'm fighting for my people.
You young pup.
The reunion, yes!
Do you believe in Paul?
There are signs. The prophet. Why is that a bad thing? Use it.
Yes, use it.
Because all my visions lead to horror.
Oh, the spice.
Because you lose control.
Because I gain it. Johnny, do you believe in me?
I think that's a direct quote out of the book. I'm glad the reference in the book.
Paul Atreides is
Oh,
still
the
alive.
Emperor! He looks quality. I got the
With
thumper.
this prophet.
Show me who you are.
Your father. Was a weak man.
Oh, he meets the Emperor?
Look who's back from the dead.
Yes.
I will do what must be done.
We gave them something to hope for.
That's not hope!
God, this looks so good. That was the vision from the first
As
film.
long as I breathe.
Now that's from the book as well.
Prophecy is how they enslave us!
And that battle.
It's not a prophecy. It's a story.
I don't care what you believe. I believe.
Oh, look at that.
I am Paul Muad'Dib Atreides,
This looks so good.
Duke of Arrakis.
This looks so fucking
He who can
epic.
destroy a thing has the real control of it.
That's out the book as well. This looks unreal. That looks like the next step up from the first one. That looks like a serious uptake from the first one. Absolutely buzzing for that. Buzzing. Right, we're going to do a quick run through, blast through. Yeah, that was seriously good. So I like the blue eyes.
World is beyond.
I think that's really good. Paul and Chani got the blue eyes. I just want to check out his Dune 2 cast. Let's just have a quick look. So Shaddam the 4. Oh, Gurney. That was his name. Gurney from the first one. So we got the blue eyes. Loving that. I think that's really good detail. And then we got obviously some probably attack on the Fremen there. This is all in response to Paul fleeing his kingdom after in the first book, in the first film. And then we see, what was his name again? What was his name again in... Harkonnen.
You've been fighting the heart beyond cruelty. You've been fighting the Harkonnens for decades.
That shot there is shot of the trailer for me. That just looked unreal. And that's going to be on, where are they from? Right, Dune, Harkonnen, home. Gady Prime. Yep, so that's got to be Gady Prime. So that's got to be them getting all the team together for the big war against the Fremen, because Danny Villeneuve has basically come out and said that this is going to be like anything from a war epic. That's what he said. And this looks unreal. This just looks on the size of Lord of the Rings. Now you got the family Atreides ring there, so that's going to be important for his legitimacy, Paul's legitimacy. And then you got him bonding with the Fremen. What else we got? Nice little shot there of his dad. Jessica going on about revenge, and then taking revenge on someone there. So that's a bit contradictory. Another shot of Chani. Paul without blue eyes there, but maybe that's just for the trailer, or maybe this is early on in the film. And Chani's got, of course, Chani would have blue eyes, I suppose, from all the spice.
Reload!
He said that. I got that.
Just looks such a grand environment. And then we get the reunion with Gurney. That's going to be emotional. That's going to be brilliant, because did we think he died in the first film? Can't honestly remember if I'm truthful, but yeah, really really good that reunion's going to be. And I think there'll be an initial attack, the reunion, the build-up of the defences and the forces, and then we'll have the massive battle at the end. I'm hoping there's more than that, because, you know, the battles in the first one were few and far between. Although they were epic, they were few and far between, and we probably could have done with a few more, if I'm honest. So that's going to be a nice reunion for them pair. And then you've got this guy, I can never remember his name. Dune 2. His name is Stilgar. So he's kind of one of the leaders of the Fremen. And to quote him out the trailer, he says, "I believe." Is that here?
Do you believe in Paul?
There are signs.
There are signs. So there are signs that he's the... What is he? The Kwisatz Haderach? Kwisatz Haderach, yeah. So there's the signs he's like the chosen one, basically. Kwisatz Haderach. So Stilgar believes Paul is the chosen one, basically. Okay, that's spoilers. Oh, that's the shot there. That is the shot there. That there is Paul Atreides riding a sandworm. And that's basically how he proves not only he gets respect from the Fremen, but he gets the Fremen on his side, because it's kind of like a rite of passage as a Fremen, as a young Fremen warrior, to ride a sandworm. So that's, you know, like in Avatar, when they hook onto the birds, it's kind of similar. Like a rite of passage for any man in the Fremen, or any warrior, I should say. And there he is, yep. And that's there. Why I believe it's so important to have that as well is because of what Stilgar's looking at here. He is convinced at this point that Paul Atreides is the chosen one.
My visions lead to horror.
Now, we had a lot of visions from Paul in the first film, and I think a lot of them will pay off, but it will have more because I'm guessing that there's going to be maybe another one. I think this is a trilogy.
You believe in me?
Now, that's a quote from the book, very important, because their relationship, it was very immature, not immature, it was very shallow at the start, within the first film. So it'd be good to see how that develops and how they can develop a very intense relationship over a very short space of time. And then we get Christopher Walken as the bloody Emperor. My God, what a great casting that is. What a great casting. You know, when you just think you don't know who it is, but the minute they cast him, he's perfect. That's spot on, that is, for me. Now, he knows he's alive now, so if you didn't clock on from the first film, spoilers for the first film, but the Emperor and the Harkonnens are working together to destroy the Atreides. But what they don't know is the size of the Fremen army. And it just so happens that Paul is going to side with the Fremen and with the Fremen take on the Harkonnens and the Emperor. Now, I reckon this one will be the Harkonnens, done and dusted, and then I think we'll move on to kind of more galactic with the Emperor, etc. But this planet is so important because of that spice. Now, this guy is... he's the son of the main Harkonnen bloke. I wish I knew these characters off the top of my head. Oh, it might be him actually, yeah. Fade Ruther. So he's basically Paul's arch nemesis, antagonist, worthy rival. I mean, this trailer does a lot to showcase him off as a formidable warrior. More about the ring. I mean, the ring is so important because of his lineage, his destiny, his what he's entitled to, not entitled, but what, like, his family, what he's entitled to, I suppose, in terms of his kingdom.
Was a weak man.
Now, this must be late in the film because he's got the blue spice eyes there, and he didn't have that at the start. More action scenes. Dave Bautista looking badass. Gurney, they'll probably have a massive showdown as well, him and Bautista. Looking forward to that.
Look who's back from the dead.
I will do what must be done.
Oh, that's a good shot as well of all the Fremen. I'm presuming that's the Fremen. Lady Jessica's the... God. I don't want that. I want... as the... What is she? What is the religion again? The Bene Gesserit, that's the one. Yeah, I think that's Benny Gesserit kind of clothing, because you got all the symbols on the face and stuff. Wasn't that Paul actually in the first? That was Paul in the first film. I'm pretty sure of it because we saw him in this sort of shot in the first film in the trailer. And that there, the one we're getting into.
Prophecy. It's a story.
Is how they enslave us!
Now that fight as well.
This prophecy is how they enslave.
That fight there is one of the big showdowns in the book. I think it's probably the second or the first book, maybe. It's the latter half of the first book. That's like one of the top tier like events that goes down in the second half of the first book.
It's not a prophecy. It's a story.
I don't care what you believe. I believe.
Now that's shot as well. Because really the Harkonnens and the Emperor don't know how many Fremen there are. But to see all of those people there, what a shot that is.
Ladies! Duke of Arrakis!
With the ring. Yes, with the ring. Long live the fighters. And you got all the Fremen. That is, oh look at that now. Forget the first one. That is the shot of the trailer.
He who can destroy a thing has the real control of it.
Now, I won't tell you what that...
He who can destroy a thing has the real control of it.
I will spoil about what this scene is all about. So I won't spoil it now, but I did watch something over on Quinn's Ideas, and he mentions about what this is all about. And it's really cool, actually. So that'd be interesting to see what happens with this scene. But yeah, buzzing for this. It looks amazing. Immense. It looks action-packed. Story-driven. I really like the story of Dune, so I'm really looking forward to that. Right, let's blitz through the Jon Snow news. Because I know we've covered it before on the channel. But I just want to see if there's any more updates. So a Game of Thrones sequel about Jon Snow is in development. So we've covered this before. So a Jon Snow spin-off is in the works at HBO, exploring his life after Game of Thrones Season 8. The ending was divisive, to say the least, but it also appeared to be definitive. HBO has since put several Game of Thrones spin-offs into various stages of development, and they all seem to have fit this idea. Rather than sequels, HBO has been focused on developing prequels such as House of the Dragon, with Season 2 on the way, set 200 years before Jon Snow's timeline. So there's other reported spin-offs tackle events that take place well before the War of the Five Kings, the battle with the Night King and the White Walkers, the rest of the Game of Thrones story. Except for a spin-off focusing on Jon Snow's Kit Harington's Jon Snow. A Jon Snow spin-off happening is somewhat surprising, but shows the continued reach of Game of Thrones and the need for streaming services to capitalise on well-established IPs. I agree with that. Although the spin-off is in early development and there are already a few details about what has been revealed, this is everything about Game of Thrones Jon Snow spin-off show. So, the latest spin-off news. I mean, technically, this could be a Game of Thrones Season 9, I suppose, if they do it right. Well, the Jon Snow spin-off hasn't been confirmed by HBO Max officially, meaning there's no release date, cast announcements, trailers, or concrete storylines. Harrington teased the predicament Jon Snow would be in post-Game of Thrones. MCU actor Kit Harington said he's got to go back up to the place with all his history and live out his life thinking about how he killed Daenerys, live out his life thinking about Ygritte, and live out his life thinking about how he hug hung Ollie and live out his life thinking about all this trauma. I don't want it to be about trauma, for God's sake. I just want it to be about story. Good storytelling. I mean, there's a few ways you could do this. You could go with Bran being the three-eyed raven, the three-eyed crow. You could go with bring back the White Walkers. You could go with the resurrection of Daenerys in Volantis with Kinvara. So you could bring those three elements back. I guess what you couldn't bring back is Cersei and Jaime. That would be really bad. I mean, you've got Tyrion still there, I guess. You could bring in maybe more of Ethos and Essos and, some of the kind of 9 kingdoms of the 9 Penny Kings, maybe. Maybe restart that feud. Could go a few directions. Right. Basically, it hasn't been confirmed by HBO. Jon Snow sequel release date prediction. Well, if it hasn't been confirmed, how can we predict? Should Jon Snow spin-off go ahead, there's still a lengthy process ahead of it. HBO ordered House of the Dragon in late 2019, giving it nearly 3 years' journey on screen to the screen. Albeit delays due to the pandemic. Following on from a similar timeline, the Jon Snow sequel's release date likely wouldn't be until 2024 at the earliest. Harrington's schedule may also be a factor since he's expected to be featuring heavily in MCU's future as Black Knight. He probably won't be. I don't think he will be. Which could create scheduling conflicts to push further back Jon Snow spin-off release date. No, I think the MCU are done with Kit Harington. I think they're done with the Eternals. I think they're done with the Black Knight story. I do. Which characters will return? A lot of them have said they would make a return. Possible returnees include Jon Stark's relatives through Beyond the Wall and not near them, while it would be also possible that Ygritte could appear in flashbacks. Okay. I mean, yeah, Tormund, you got Ghost, you could have Bran, you could have the Starks, you could have, Tyrion, you could have Daenerys, you've still got the Unsullied, you've still got a few major players. Obviously, you wouldn't have things like the Mountain or the Hound or the Lannisters, but there's no King's Land left, so it really doesn't matter. Right then, so let's just finish this bit off then. So, what is the Game of Thrones spin-off about? The most immediate challenge facing the Jon Snow spin-off is what the story will be about. Well, of course, you could wait for the books to come out and try and shoehorn in this ending with The Winds of Winter and The Dream of Spring, or you could bring George back on board and get some real tips like he's doing with House of the Dragon. Jon's Game of Thrones ending saw him going back to the Wall with the rest of the wildlings, a full-fitting circle moment that didn't suggest any obvious avenue for a follow-up. The Jon Snow sequel will have to find some new conflicts for the wildlings, whether there's a new threat emerging or more internal affairs over leadership, and whether Jon Snow becomes the king beyond the Wall like Mance Rayder. It's possible that more of Westeros could be dragged into whatever happens, but the billing as a Jon Snow sequel does suggest the story will be more focused on lands north of the Wall. See, I think that's... No, I don't agree with that. I think it's... I think it could be quite expansive, but there's a lot of key elements that made Game of Thrones good that aren't there. You'd have to introduce a hell of a lot of new characters that don't appear in the books. I mean, maybe what you could also do is bring in things like fake Aegon. You could bring in Fagon, young Griff. Could bring back John Connington. You could make this maybe about his dad, about Rhaegar as well. I do think they should bring back Daenerys. And I do think they should resurrect the White Walkers. I do, because we haven't explored things like the Lands of Always Winter. We didn't go back to the White Walkers kind of palace in the Lands of Always Winter, so we didn't explore there. We didn't explore the God's Eye. We didn't explore the Children of the Forest and their backstory and more about how they created the White Walkers. I think there's enough there to either do a season 9 or reboot it from the end of season 6 and probably do 10 seasons. Right, let's quickly go through the Superman news, and then I think we'll finish off with the 3-body problem review, because really, really interested to watch that as well. So Superfan Legacy. Now, off the bat, not a fan of James Gunn's new plans. Not a fan at all. I think it's dead on arrival. I think the only thing that it's probably got going for it is a good, strong Batman and Robin film with Batman Brave and the Bold. And we did another community post a few weeks back asking you guys and gals to vote about what you're feeling in terms of that James Gunn new DC universe, and the majority were big for the Batman film. Superman Legacy film, it doesn't really have a lot going for it, particularly how badly they did Henry Cavill, and that is probably one of the, unless this gets sold, unless Zack Snyder's Justice League gets sold to Netflix, this is the new Superman and the only Superman in the next few years. So, David Corenswet and Rachel Brosnahan to play Clark Kent and Lois Lane in DC Studios' film Superman Legacy. The decision comes after the two were among the few selected to test in front of DC co-chairs Peter Safran and James Gunn in full costume and makeup. Oh, so if they look the part, then they get the part. Okay. So who is David Corenswet? Really feels like they're going for more of like a Smallville vibe with this. Gunn will now look to fill the shoes of Superman's arch nemesis Lex Luthor, as well as other opposing supporting characters like Kent's friend Jimmy Olsen. I mean, that's got Smallville vibes all over it. The project was announced early this year when Gunn and Safran laid out their plan for the first phase of this revamped slate, and Superman Legacy was front and centre as the project that would help launch this strategy. I think it's the wrong strategy they've gone with, really do. I think we reviewed it back a couple of months back and on one of the podcasts. Not feeling it, really not. Batman, probably the Batman film, but then again, you've got the Robert Pattinson Batman verse as well, so are they going to bring Robert Pattinson into this? Who knows? So that presentation also included plans for the new Batman pick, Batman Brave and the Bold, which recently tapped Andy Muschietti to direct, and The Authority. Andy Muschietti is the one that either originally or did actually do The Flash. I mean, he didn't really do a good job there. For Corenswet, the film will mark his first major leading role in a major studio's film. So not much pressure there then, mate. Having previously appeared in projects like The Pearl, The Politician and We Own the City. Haven't heard of any of those, to be fair. From the start, his name is floated to the top, and following the final audition, sealed the big deal on the biggest role of his career so far. It's a pretty big role to get. I mean, at least Henry Cavill had a few kind of sub roles before this. He was in The Immortals. Brosnahan is coming off the final season of her career-making role in Amazon's The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which has earned her a number of accolades, including an Emmy win. She has also been at the top of the list of women to play Lois Lane, following what many have described to be the best audition of the process. Oh, that's good. And I've heard good things about The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Corenswet is repped by CA Untitled Okay. I mean, I haven't heard of either. I mean, I've loosely heard of the new Lois Lane because I clocked the show on Amazon, but not heard of this guy here. So we'll see, you know. I mean, I'm going into this new DC universe with not much expectation. So we'll see. Right, what I'm looking forward to most on tonight's podcast is reviewing and reacting to the three-body problem. Now, massive, massive, massive fan of these books. Smashed out the first book on holiday. Loved that. Loving, not as much, but loving book 2. I think it's really good. Expansive story. Decent characters. Book 1 was 10 out of 10 for me. Like, perfect science fiction. Amazing. Book 3, I've heard, is an unbelievable, epic climax to the story. But I think this official teaser for Three Body Problem on Netflix is just for book 1, from what I've seen and heard. So, Three Body Problem, official teaser trailer, reaction, review, breakdown. Let's go. Oh, red star base.
As children, we fear the dark.
If that is Yi Wengji, perfect casting. Perfect casting of Red Star Base.
Might be out there. The unknown troubles us.
Oh, the ship! Mike Evans' ship!
There are
The numbers!
we should not inquire too closely into who else might be living in
Yes!
the
Yes! This looks
Better.
unbelievable.
darkness. Not to know.
Oh. Oh, wow. That's got to be in the game. Oh my God.
But we continue to search. Life looks for life.
Oh my God. That game world looks crazy good. I am loving what I'm seeing so far. Perfect casting for Yu Wengji. Didn't see Wang. Didn't see Wang. Let's just go through the characters. Yi Wengji, perfect casting. Didn't see Wang Mao. But, and I reckon the guy who plays Wong, I think he's playing Dashi. I think he's playing, Shi Kang or Dashi. I only know him. Now, from the creators of Game of Thrones. Now, the biggest red flag for this is Dan and Dave, the infamous Dan and Dave from Game of Thrones, are creating this. But the saviour is threefold, right? Threefold. The books are finished. They're adapting the books. They're not doing any of their own stuff. They might introduce new characters, but they're adapting the books. The books are finished. And the books are very, very, very good. And with that, they have got Jijin Liu on site helping them with this. So, whilst it is a red flag, and it's probably the only red flag for me for this show, it looks incredible so far. It looks incredible. Red Coast base looks brilliant. Now let's just see going down. Didn't see Wang unless that's him there. That's him there. But I believe that that's Dashi, because Dashi goes into the wherever Wang Mao is, I think, and he looks for all the numbers and he sees them all over the wall. So that's got to be Dashi, and that'd be a really good part for the guy who plays Wong to play. Really digging that. Didn't see Wei Cheng. Might have actually seen Shen Yufei, and I'll tell you where. There, I think that because they land, I think Wang lands at Shin Yufei's house. He meets the husband. He meets Wei Cheng, so we don't get to see him. But then he starts talking to her, and I think she introduces him to Three Body. I don't think we've seen Pan Han. I think we might have seen Mike Evans, or at least the back of Mike Evans. And with the ship, with the yacht, so I reckon this guy here on the right in the trench coat, I reckon that's Mike Evans. The hand. Where's the hand that we saw there? This could be from listener 1379 on their own in Trisolaris. Who else? Yeezy Tai. So we actually get a glimpse of him. Again, really good casting. So there he is. And they cut this out of the one that was done in China. So this scene wasn't shown in China, obviously to do with the China Revolution and stuff like that. But they cut this whole thing out. But this scene is probably one of the most important scenes in the entire book. This is one of the cornerstones of Yi Wengji's entire motivation of doing what she did. Basically a massive FU to the world and everyone who did everything to her family. And how she got screwed over as well. It's all a big FU. But perfect casting of Yi Wengji there. That's when she's younger. So I think it's probably the same character. It is the same character there. So that's young Yi Wengji. Now, whether they just keep the same character through and through. Red Coast based, looking absolutely on point with the disc at the top. Couldn't ask for any more there. Don't think we've seen Shaolin. No. We might get some family flashbacks at the start. Yi Wengzhu. No, we'll probably see them in Red Coast base. Revolutionary Girls, are they the ones that torture Yi Wengji? So they're probably in that opening. They're probably these ones. Bai Mulin, I can't remember who that character is. Commissar Lei, we haven't seen him yet. Yang Weining, I don't think we've seen them yet. Yang Dong, not seen Yang Dong, and I don't think we have. I mean, we've barely seen Yi Wengji, and to be fair, Yang Dong doesn't really appear until later on in the books. Neither does Ding Yi, and then obviously we've got the people from the game. So we've got King Zhu, King Wen, Mozai, the Pope, Galileo, Leonardo da Vinci, and the rest of them. Now, I mean, absolutely buzzing for this. This just looks... To be fair, if it's at the quality and the standard of Game of Thrones seasons 1 to 4 was, where Dan and Dave had not only George R. R. Martin, but books to adapt to and time and money, which Netflix are obviously throwing at this, they should do an incredible job at this. Should do. Hopefully they do. That looks like maybe Yi Wengji or anything to do with kind of being quite modern. I'm guessing that might be in 3-body. Again, this looks like it's in 3-body. Now, this guy is I can't remember his name now, but he's out of Game of Thrones, Samwell Tarly. So Samwell, he's obviously got to be one of the kings or the emperors in 3-body. This must be either something to do with Mike Evans or Wang Mao going to the maybe like one of the meetings with Commissar Lay when they discovered the Trisolarians. The numbers, so happy they got the numbers in. I've heard they did a really good thing with the numbers with the Chinese version. Again, that's got to be Da Shi because he's a bit chubby as well. And yeah, that's Wang Mao saying he still sees the numbers. Don't know who this is. Actually, no one do. That is this guy. So whether this is probably an ETO member or because I don't recall this character from the book. This could be an ETO member. This could be just some like science person or research person from one of the labs, or this could be a new character. I really hope that they don't bring in too many new characters because there's such a great array of characters in the first book. Now this again has got to be the pyramid in 3-body. I reckon that's the listener. Now this is obviously Yi Wengji doing her thing in Red Coast Base. Shen Yufei. Again, the pyramid in 3-body, but I think that's more. That's further on in the story. Some more 3-body. Some more 3-body. Don't know who this character is. Some more 3-body. Again, don't know who these two are. Really hoping there's not too many new characters in this. Now, this is the shot. That looks unreal. And I reckon that's the Sophons in unfolding or folding. That just looks absolutely incredible. To get that level of detail into that structure and bring to life that monumentous, galactic-sized thing and turn it into the Siphon. Don't know what this would be. It's got to be in 3-body again. And then we finish with Yi Wengji.
But we continue to search. Life looks for life.
Absolutely. Life looks for life. Incredible shot there, 3-body. I reckon I know what that is. I ain't going to spoil it though. Yep, incredible shots in 3-body. Don't know who that is. Again, I hope it's not a new character. It's interesting they've got the number 3 and not the word 3. But I think that is owned by Tencent, the Chinese. Now, only on Netflix, January 2024. Absolutely buzzing. If this drops episode by episode, we'll be doing a episode review. If not, we'll be doing a full season review after I've watched it. Tune in to JGITW for that. Now, I think we will. We'll end things there, folks. It's been a great stream. It's been a great stream. Great to have you with us. We had loads of people in the chat tonight. So if you've enjoyed the stream, drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you never want to miss an update or when we go live on the podcast. And you can tune in, you can join in. Let us know what you're up to in the comments as well. Drop a like on the stream. This will probably be going live on the channel tomorrow in terms of being able to watch back. Let me know what you're thinking in terms of what you want us to review going forward. And tune in this week for Secret Invasion Episode 3. We've got Final Fantasy X No Sphere Grid Episode 15B coming, so that's been hella fun doing monster capturing in Macalania, Lake Macalania, the Macalania Woods, and the Thunder Plains, getting loads of great steals, great items as well for the areas moving forward with that. We'll be doing some more content next week, probably have our guest Top Secret join us again, so that'll be interesting going through, probably have a deep dive into the Dune 2 trailer and look at more content around Final Fantasy 16. That's been a massive hit on the channel thus far. So if you've joined us in the chat, thanks for joining. It's been great to have you with us as always. Appreciate the love and support. I'll see you again for the next one. Cheers. Take care. Bye.